So as you could see in those videos, Sim Update 11 or the 40th anniversary update for Microsoft Flight Sim on both PC and Xbox is not far away. Of course, the highlight for many will be the 12 new aircraft it brings over, but there's plenty more features that will be coming over, so let's talk about it in today's video. Okay, so first off we'll kick off with some background behind this update. Of course, the highlight being the 40th anniversary of Microsoft Flight Sim. That's right, it's been 40 years since Microsoft Flight Simulator 1.0 was released in the November of 1982. I think it's very easy to say that the recent Microsoft Flight Sim installment, the one we've all come to know and love, is by far one of the most impressive games, or simulators, whatever you like to call it, you can get on any sort of gaming device right now. You know, whether you fly on Xbox or PC, I don't think you can step away from how fantastic it is. It really is breathtaking. Aside from that, let's talk about this update, understanding the history behind it. Of course, the highlight being we're getting 12 new freeware aircraft, from the Airbus A310 to, of course, the Wright Flyer, which was the world's first heavier-than-air powered aircraft that flew over in Kitty Hawk in the USA in the early 20th century. Now, if you'd like to see all of these aircraft explained in detail, then please do check out my other video on it. Here I am showing part of it on the screen right now. This goes into good detail of every single one of these aircraft. Of course, the highlight being helicopters and gliders, and my personal favourite, the Airbus A310. You know, it is really fantastic to see all these aircraft coming along, and of course I'm showing you a list of them on the screen now and showing you some footage. To list off all the aircraft very briefly without giving a big explanation to all of them, we've got the Wright Flyer, which I've talked about, the Ryan NYP, Spirit of St. Louis, which I pronounced wrong in the last video, the Douglas DC-3, which will be made in collaboration with Airplane Heaven, the de Havilland Canada DHC-2 Beaver, the Curtiss JN-4 Canuck, the Grumman G21 Goose, which is an amphibious aircraft, the Hughes H-4 Hercules, known as the Spruce Goose. It was, up until recently, the world's largest aircraft in most dimensions. However, it only flew once and for a few minutes. Moving over to helicopters, we've got the Bell 407, the Gimbal Capri G2, both of which we'll be talking about later, and then with gliders, we've got the DGF LGA-18 and the DGF 1001 E-Neo, and then to top it off we've got the Airbus A310-300, which will be by Innie Simulations in collaboration with Asobo. Go on my other video to hear more about all of them. Now, these aircraft are significant on their own, but really taking a step back, we've got to look at the bigger picture. 4 of these aircraft actually add so much to the sim. So we've got 2 helicopters and 2 gliders. Let's first off talk about helicopters. So sharing with you some footage from the Feature Discovery Series episode 15, which was shared 2 hours ago at the time of filming on Microsoft Flight Sim's official YouTube channel. You can get a good look into the helicopters we are getting. Now, this one does focus on the Gimbal Capri G2, but we're also getting the Bell 407 by Nemeth Design. But really, we're talking about the principles of helicopters here, because of course we're used to flying powered, heavy-than-air, fixed-wing aircraft on Microsoft Flight Sim. Helicopters are a totally different ballgame. Now, I'm very fortunate enough to work with helicopters on a daily basis in my day job, so I'm very excited to see them come along, although admittedly I work with more Airbus 175s than I do Capri G2, but helicopters are helicopters at the end of the day. We're getting some really good looks at the helicopters in Microsoft Flight Sim, mostly the Capri G2. We haven't really got any footage of the Bell 407 just yet, with the exception of the trailer. I mean, just look how they get the scans at the Gimbal factory. I did hear on the video they take 80 photos a second to create this scan, and of course it creates a 3D model. It's really fantastic to actually see behind the scenes, because some people just think you can make a model like this in Blender and then export it out, but it's really not that easy, especially seeing as they're working with a manufacturer. It ensures there's a high level of quality. And the same again with the sound, putting microphones all around the helicopter when it's outside or inside the cockpit. I just think that's absolutely fantastic how they do it, and does explain how aircraft are so realistic on Microsoft Flight Sim. Now, of course, a big thing with helicopters as well is that they've got to bring over the flight model for helicopters. This comes as part of their CFD simulation, which stands for Computational Fluid Dynamics. Now, this was introduced in Sim Update 9, and it basically simulates airflow over aircraft surfaces. For those of you that are on X-Plane, you might be familiar with the blade element theory. It's sort of similar to that. It just means that the sim, as opposed to relying on a set number of values from a numerical table, it sort of simulates actual air moving over the surfaces as if it was real life. To be honest, I'm completely out of depth when talking about it, but it does mean they get some really highly realistic simulation, and of course it's no different for helicopters, and it's fantastic to see how the airflow reacts to the helicopter blades on the videos they share. It also means we get stuff like ground effect, translational lift, delayed phase lag, and of course auto rotation, which is used for emergency landing in helicopters. And something that stands out for me as well is that if you go under the rotors of a helicopter, walking under them for example with your external camera, then you actually hear the wind slap at the blades. I think that's fantastic because it's a noise I'm very familiar with my day job, so it's really nice to see some more detail about helicopters, which of course is a big part of this update. Now, what about gliders? Two gliders are coming over, the DGF LG818 and the DGF DG1001E Neo. Both of these gliders are being worked on in collaboration with Flight Sim Studios. Now, on Feature Discovery Series Episode 14, we get a 7-minute video looking into gliders. It's really fantastic to see. Of course, I'm sharing some footage of this video on the screen now, but I really would recommend you go ahead and watch these videos in full, because to be fair with you, they are very interesting to watch, and you'll probably learn something. What takes my fancy here is how they've captured the sound of the glider. Just take a listen. As you can hear, almost pure silence with the exception of the wind and the air going along the aircraft. It does sound fantastic. What also takes my fancy here is their explanation of how the gliders are launched. Whether it be tow plane or winch tow, I'm really excited to see this and have a go at it. Gliding wouldn't be my first port of call when I want to fly a plane. I do love flying around in a Cessna. I've never been gliding before, but after a few flights on Microsoft Flight Sim, it may change my mind. Now, I've got experience with gliders on Microsoft Flight Sim. Like many of you out there, you might be familiar with some of the freeware alternatives, but if you're on Xbox, of course, you haven't had access to them. So it's going to be big news for you guys. Of course, we're getting all of this stuff related to CFD, like thermals. That's already been introduced on Sim Update 11 Beta, but it's really cool to see how they've modelled thermals and how you can turn it on so you can actually see these thermals and fly towards them, or glide towards them, I should say. Now, aside from all the aircraft introductions, we've got plenty of updates to the sim as a whole. Some of you may be familiar with some of these changes if you've already downloaded Sim Update 11 Beta, because of course this update is coming down as Sim Update 11 / the 40th anniversary update. So it does bring some changes to the fundamentals of the sim from AMD's FSR2 option, which to summarise simply is similar to DLSS. In some ways it's not, but it works for AMD cards and older Nvidia graphics cards, so used correctly it could result in a performance boost. It does that thing where it samples a select few of the frames rendered and then boosts the other ones up. To be fair with you, I don't know how it works exactly, but I do pray that my brief explanation is good enough. We've already talked about CFD, Computational Fluid Dynamics, which of course was introduced in Sim Update 9. But has been built on in Sim Update 11 with the introduction of gliders and helicopters and thermals. It simulates airflow over aircraft surfaces, similar to blade element theory on X-Plane. Sim Update 11 and the 40th anniversary update should see this improved for quite obvious reasons. And finally, there's going to be improvements to DirectX 12, and this should stop those ghastly memory leaks, which meant that if you're flying for quite a few hours, 2 or more hours, your FPS would slowly degrade to the point where it was unplayable because your memory was basically full. The Asobo team have basically compartmentalised memory in some way, I don't know how, where it should mean everything's a bit smoother, so I'm excited to see what they do there. There's plenty more quality of life improvements from AI traffic to more on DirectX 12, but we'll have to see as it comes, because of course we haven't got everything this update does just yet. Aside from that, with the 40th anniversary update, we also get 14 new heliports handcrafted by the Asobo team, 10 glider ports, which sounds a bit weird, once again handcrafted by the Asobo team, 4 classical airports, which of course are going to be airports of historical value either in the real world or to Float Simulator. It won't be Friday Harbour though, because we've already had one of those handcrafted, so it will be interested to do. There'll also be some missions, bush trips and landing challenges, discovery flights and handcrafted points of interest, but sadly no information there. It will be certainly interesting to see what they do there, but that's it really. That's all we know about Sim Update 11, the 40th anniversary update. From the A310 to the Bell 47 to the Curtis J and 4 Canuck, it's going to be a fantastic update, whether you're interested in the planes or not. There seems to be something for everyone. From me to there, so I hope you've enjoyed this wrap up video. I hope you've learned something. Be sure to like, comment and subscribe if you did enjoy, and if you didn't, leave your thoughts down below. I'm always trying to improve. Thank you so much for watching. Have a great day wherever you are. Goodbye.